call to order the resumption of the April 15th, 2020 meeting of the Morris Township Committee. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just before we started, Mr. Mancuso
Pardon?
We may have lost Mr. Mancuso. Just double checking he's back on.
Should we take a roll call?
That would be a good idea, yes, ma'am.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you mind taking a roll call?
Tim, I don't see Peter Mancuso's box. Just so you know, he's not.
I don't either.
Jeff, I got it.
Mr. Arvanites.
He's not showing up, Tim. Okay.
Mr. Arvanites.
So it's
Mr. Durfee.
Here.
Mr. Mancuso. Mr. Griselle.
Here.
Mayor Wilson.
here.
Thank you.
So we're missing Mr. Arvanites and Mr. Mancuso.
Mr. Arvanites has to unmute himself. I can see him, but he's muted.
I can't see him.
Now
There you are.
here.
Mr. Arvanites.
Here.
Thank you.
Usually did.
Mr. Arvanites is on.
Here, yes.
Peter should be right back on. He's not on dial in.
I turned your video off too. I turned your video off.
I'm just doing it for test.
Why? So it's such a pain tonight. Usually these two windows are already there when they started up.
I like the way that if you look at it goes in by alphabetical order, so you can actually see for as far as the attendees.
Oh, they're in alphabetical on the other side?
This way you can tell if other people are logged on.
Mm-hmm.
You can go scroll if you're looking for a particular person, you can go down.
Hmm.
Is this you?
Yes, sir, you're on.
Okay. I'll put it on the record.
Mayor, we're ready to go.
Okay, thanks. So I'll begin with a few opening comments. I do want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Obviously, it's a bit of a challenge under these circumstances. We all know the COVID-19 situation is having a major effect on all aspects of our life, and we are conducting this meeting remotely via Zoom webinar for that reason. And as you can see, all of the Township Committee members are dialing in remotely. We are postponing many parts of our meeting, some of our favorite parts, such as the awards, presentations, in-person meetings, and the recipients and their families can actually be here or be at Town Hall in person to celebrate the occasion. There will be several spots in tonight's meeting where members of the public will have the opportunity to ask questions and make comments. And to do that, you'll need to locate the spot on your device that says raise hand. And it should be fairly easy to locate, and we'll explain that a little further when we get to it. Before we begin the meeting, I just want to say how truly proud and grateful I am to see so many people in our community reaching out and encouraging and supporting each other in so many different ways. We're obviously in very tough circumstances, and we really are in this together. We will get through it together, and we will be stronger on the other side. So with that, let's move on to approval of the minutes from the March 18th meeting. Can I have a motion for that? A motion for the approval of the minutes of the March 18th meeting?
So move, Mayor.
Second, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have 3 ordinances tonight for public hearing and final consideration. Mr. Carlson, could you begin on that?
Sure. Thank you,
Which one?
Madam Mayor. The first ordinance for public hearing and final consideration tonight is Ordinance 06-20. First of all, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Ordinance 06-20, calendar year 2020 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. This is the typical annual ordinance to establish a cap bank.
Mr. Quinn, would you mind giving just a brief summary of what that means?
Yes, ma'am. And I also have Mr. Gannon on here who could probably do it much better than I will, but I'll certainly start with a shot and ask Mr. Gannon to jump in.
A little bit louder, Tim, please.
Yes, a little louder.
Is this better?
Yes.
Hopefully? Okay. Basically, it's on paper, it's not real money, it's not a real bank. It is, when we are under the tax levy cap, we are allowed to take that money, and it's a state formula to get pushed into it, so that in future years, if we have to go above the 2%, we're able to do that without going out to referendum for that. So it's just a procedural thing that's required by the state for the budget. And being that we are, as you will see in the budget presentation, significantly below tax levy cap, we're able to then move money over into that. So there should be a very bad year in the near future that we would be able to go above the 2% if it was so desired by the tax committee. Is there anything else, Mr. Gannon, that I may have misspoke or got it correct?
No, I think that covers it. It's every year the division permits a certain percentage over and above an increase for budget within caps. And this doesn't increase the budget in any way. It doesn't provide any budgetary resources. It doesn't raise taxes. It merely provides flexibility to the township, whether it be in the current year or in future years, as the cap is able to be rolled over for multiple years. Provides township stability and flexibility in case of an emergency or unforeseen circumstances. So procedurally, to do it every year to maximize that cap bank is certainly the most prudent way to handle it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this ordinance?
Is there an amount? Do we have an amount? That's in our,
We-
this is John Arvanites. Hello?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Your
Mr.
question?
Do we have an amount that's in the cap bank?
Mr. Quinn, do you know the answer to that?
I'm gonna take a look at that and get that information for you. Do you have that, Mr. Gannon? You want me to go on?
Yeah, right now, the budget for 2020 has operations within cap of 27,971,000. The maximum amount of the appropriations that could be within a cap, given where it is compared to the current year plus prior year cap banks, would be 29,435,000. You're under cap $1,463,000 under the appropriation cap.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Arvanites?
No, that's it. Thank you.
At this point, we would be able to take questions or comments from the public, if there are any.
We need a motion first.
And if so, the public then needs to look for the icon that says raise hand. And Mark Daly on site can see those. I cannot see those. So is there anyone from the public who would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Mayor, if I
If
may interrupt
so,
for a
please
minute.
indicate by raising your hand.
Mayor, if I may interrupt for a minute. Before we go further
Yes,
commentary, we're gonna need a motion to introduce you to adopt the ordinance.
I
So moved.
can't hear you.
So moved.
Thank you. Now we can open up the comments.
Can you get a
Okay.
second on that?
Mr. Mancuso.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, and now we have the opportunity for public comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Is anyone showing up? Mr. Daly, who would wish to comment?
Not at this time. Also, if you're on the telephone, you do a *9, automatically raise your hand on here to the key, because I see a phone number up on top here if they want to ask a question.
Okay. So if you're on a phone, *9, and if you're on another device, look for the icon that says raise hand. Okay, seeing no further comment, we'll call for a vote on this ordinance. I believe it's a roll call, correct,
Yes.
Madam Clerk?
Yes. Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you.
I, Catherine J. Wilson, Mayor, declare this ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk to publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Next, we have ordinance 7-20. Mr.
Thank you.
Carlson?
Thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 07-20. It's an ordinance of the Township of Morris, County, New Jersey, recommending the adoption of the Abbey/Alnwick Hall redevelopment plan regarding the property identified on the Township's tax map as Block 8409, Lot 1, being 355 Madison Avenue, Morris Township, New Jersey, pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A-12A-1 et sec. Mr. Quinn, my understanding is that we're going to be carrying this ordinance to a future meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carlson. That meeting
Yes.
was originally scheduled for April 29th. Due to the current situation, the Township Committee felt it was important that we be able to do it at an actual public meeting. We are recommending that this ordinance be carried from April 29th to June the 3rd at 7 p.m.
So I think we're looking for a motion to carry this to June 3rd at 7 p.m.
That is
So moved. I recommend we move it to January 3rd at 7 p.m.
June
June 3rd.
June 3rd.
June 3rd, sorry, June 3rd, 7 p.m. Yes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Just before we vote on that, just a brief comment. We what we are looking at here is having a special meeting for discussion of the redevelopment plan that has been proposed for the Abbey. And we thoroughly understand how important that is to our community and how difficult it would be to hold a public meeting under remote condition. So it is our strong desire that we push the special meeting off until such time as we can meet and hold it in person. And we are setting June 3rd as our date. If by June 3rd we are still not able to hold it in person, we will entertain a motion at that time or before, probably at our May Township Committee meeting to push it further. It's very important to us to hold this meeting in person when people can be there in person to see the exhibits and offer questions and comments in person. So we have a motion to move the special meeting for the Abbey to June 3rd. We have a second, and we now need a vote. Is that a roll call?
You could do that on
vote,
voice vote.
Madam Clerk?
All in
Yeah.
favor?
A voice vote?
You wanna vote?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the
Mayor?
special meeting for the Abbey is moved
Mayor,
to
man,
June
make-
3rd.
Mayor, may I make a
Yes.
comment? Just
Yeah.
so the public understands that the plan for the Abbey is available on our website. And if you go to the morristwp.com, you hover over the word department at the top and then click on land use information. You can scroll down and see the Abbey plan right on our website.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you read the special letter I sent out, there's links to the redevelopment study and other links as well. We realize this is a very important project for our community, and we want to make sure that the public has full access, timely access to all the information that's needed to understand what's going on and to participate. Anything else on that? Okay.
If not, Mayor-
Next, we have, yes?
We'll move on to 08-20.
820,
Yes.
Carlson?
Just as an aside, I think that voice vote was perfectly fine, but I think I'm going to recommend that going forward, we take roll call on everything, because on this format, voice vote doesn't really work very well. So next is Ordinance 08-20, amending Chapter 95 zoning, Article 5 of the Code of the Township of Morris. This is an ordinance to prohibit automotive service stations with convenience stores. My understanding is that we want to provide, as a at minimum as a courtesy, some additional notice of this, and that we're going to carry this to the May 20th public meeting.
Yes.
To make that move, is that correct?
Yeah, I think we're looking for a motion to carry this to the May 20th meeting.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Okay, we will do that then, and before May 20th, the proper outreach to the service station owners and convenience store owners will be undertaken.
Mayor, we need a roll call on the motion to carry.
We need a roll call on the motion.
Okay, a roll call, Madam Clerk, a roll call on the motion to carry to the 20th, May 20th.
Mr. Abnedis?
Yes.
Mr. Jarvie?
Yes.
Ms. Mancuso? Yes. Mayor Brazel? Mr. Brazel?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving on to ordinances for introduction tonight. These are only being introduced, they're not for public hearing. The first being 09-20, bond ordinance providing for swimming pool improvements by the Township of Morris, appropriating $122,500 therefore, and authoring the issuance of $116,375 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof.
Okay. This is for introduction only.
Introduction
And-
only.
Yes.
I will move 09-20. I will move 09-20.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Abnedis?
Yes.
Circle?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson? Mayor Wilson?
Did you say, I couldn't hear you. Yeah, if you said my name, yes.
Mayor.
Very well. Moving on,
Okay,
ordinance
so
for,
that is introduced.
yes. Next ordinance for introduction is ordinance 10-20. It's an ordinance appropriating $130,000 available in the Parking Utility Capital Improvement Fund to provide for various capital improvements at the Convent train station by the Township of Morris.
I'll move 10-20.
Second.
Roll call?
Thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Durfee?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is introduced, and that takes us to ordinance 11-20, an ordinance appropriating $666,500 available in General Capital Improvement Fund to provide for various capital improvements by the Township of Morris.
Motion?
I'll move 11-20.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Durfee?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
That ordinance is introduced. That takes us to ordinance 12-20, an ordinance appropriating the aggregate amount of $1,220,000 to provide for various capital improvements by the Township of Morris. Looking for a motion to introduce.
I'll offer the ordinance.
I'll second. Yep.
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Durfee?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
All right, that ordinance is introduced. Moving on to ordinance 13-20. It's a bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements by the Township of Morris, appropriating the aggregate amount of $2,665,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,531,750 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Looking for a motion to introduce.
So
I'll
moved.
I'll second.
Second? Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Durfee?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you. And the final ordinance for introduction tonight is ordinance 14-20. It's an ordinance appropriating $3,360,000 available in the Sewer Utility Capital Improvement Fund to provide for various wastewater treatment plant and sewer system improvements by the Township of Morris. Looking for a motion to introduce.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Arvanites?
Roll call?
Yes.
Mr. Durfee?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Griselle?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn it back
Moving
over
on.
to you to the municipal
Thank
budget
you.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could
Yeah.
just, on the ordinances that were just introduced, all six of them, 09 through -20 and
Oh, yeah.
14-20, all six will be public hearing adoption on May 20th.
At our next Township Committee meeting on May 20th.
Correct, and they will be advertised as such.
Thank you. Next, we have our 2020 budget presentation that will be led by Mr. Quinn. And who else, Mr. Quinn?
Myself and Mr. Gannon and Ms. DeAngelis is also on.
Okay, and you're going to have there we are. Okay, take it away.
Good evening. So as the auditor, we're statutorily required to review the budget to ensure that the budget is structured in a way that complies with New Jersey statutes. New Jersey statutes have specific laws, 48.4 local budget law, that all towns must follow. I'll tell you, through review of the budget, I feel that the budget is really built in a very fiscally prudent manner. Maintains services without tax increases again. It's been a number of years since the townships had to raise taxes. The township is able to continue to fund capital projects on a pay-as-you-go basis. The town's also been able to continue to reduce the debt. So the amount of debt authorized in any given year has been less than the amount that the town's been able to retire in a given year. So as a result, the township has continued to reduce its outstanding debt over a number of years. And really more importantly, given the conditions that we now face with the coronavirus, unprecedented, there's really some significant unknowns going through the remainder of 2020 and into 2021. I don't think it would be unreasonable to think that there may be state aid delays, and if not delays, even reductions in state aid, reductions of state aid not only 2021, but also 2020. Although they've certified certain aid amounts, I have seen in the past where aid has been reduced after that. There's been significant slowdown of operations in given municipalities, whether it be court activities or fees and permits or parking. Or so certainly there's Mr. Quinn will go over this a little bit more later, but certainly there's a risk of loss of revenue, as well as some increase in some costs. The pension fund has already been having significant issues, and certainly the way the market has reacted, it has really taken a significant detriment to pension assets, which will only potentially mean that pension bills will increase going forward. But what I would tell you is that the township's budget has been structured in such a way over a number of years that it really provides the town it puts the town in an excellent position to weather these uncertainties going forward. I would really, when I look at the township's budget, I would say many towns would like to emulate the way the township's been able to structure its budget over a number of years and the financial position that it's in.
Thank you, Mr. Gannon. I will start with our budget. I always like to do it. It's a large process. Ms. DeAngelo's my CFO, and I work on the budget, 12 months a year in preparing and then during the budget. But pretty much from October through the end of February, beginning of March, it's a full-time endeavor for the two of us in working to bring the budget to fruition and working with our department heads who are excellent, and they know the parameters coming in of what they should only be asking for is what they actually need. They haven't gave you this much last year, so how much do you need this year? They have to justify every single appropriation for that. Once those budgets are submitted, we then start reviewing them with the standing committees of the two members of the Township Committee who have oversight for those departments, and we review them line by line, go through that. It's to the point now where sometimes you can get to the Township Committee, looks at this, and are you having enough money? Do you need more money because you're coming in like too low there? So that is a compliment to our department heads to know that these are taxpayer dollars and that they are guarding them as they would their own checkbook. Once we finish up the standing committee reviews, then the work goes with the finance committee, and this year with Committeeman Mancuso as the chair and Mayor Wilson as the second on that, sitting down with Mr. Andrews and myself kind of go over it and start structuring the budget, looking at all of the requests that are coming in, how much money we're going to anticipate, and putting it all together. And that's a process over January and February, at which time then we provide everything to Mr. Gannon from O'Connor Davies to look at. Ms. Gannon works on doing the budget document, and then Mr. Gannon takes it and he does his review on that. And there's certain assumptions that he has to put into the budget to make it work. And we have that done, then we're able to bring it back to the entire Township Committee for their review. And then it was introduced in March, and now we're prepared to move forward with getting the budget in place for 2020. As with we're going to get the next slide here. Thank you. As there's always, significant challenges that we have to deal with. As you said, we're dealing with taxpayer dollars, and we want to make sure that we stay within our limits. And it's always been the philosophy of the Township Committee to be fiscally responsible, so we are guarding those taxpayer dollars. One of our biggest expense, and we provide a lot of services to our residents, that is our employee costs. Ever since 2011, basically the standard raise has been about 2% across the board. We have that again this year. We also deal with a number of things that fluctuate significantly from year to year. And this one is our, sometimes we've seen double digits, and there's other times where, as this year, where it's coming in at 0. So that was helpful in this year's budget, that we did not have an increase on our employees. Something about the papers. Thank you. With that, I also want to point out that, with the legislation passed back in 2011 for employee contributions, our employees contribute over in excess of $1 million towards their health care costs. So it is we work together with our employees to try and reduce those costs, because a lot of them, the costs are dependent on what we use for prescriptions or how much health care and everything else. So we're very fortunate, again, as I said, we did not have to put an increase into this year's budget for health care costs. We also look at our capital funding, of what we can do to improve services, what we can do to improve our infrastructure, and then also looking as to what types of equipment that our sewer plants need, that our Department of Public Works need, our police and fire units need, along with those here at Town Hall. And it's challenging. It's probably the most challenging part of the budget is dealing with all the capital requests and recommendations. This year I have $9.3 million in recommended requests from our department heads as the things that would be important to keep the township functioning and providing services. And we have to bring that down to about $2.5 million. And then another $1 million that we can do that. So roughly $3.5 million. It's a very difficult task. We follow the township philosophy that's been in place for many, many years, that we are not going to bring on any new debt except for what we retire. So the township has not raised debt in many, many years. And as Mr. Gannon alluded to earlier, as you see, our debt does go down as we try to whittle that down every year a little bit, especially with the sewer utility and the parking utility. One of the other challenges that we had for the budget this year is every 5 or 6 years we go out to bond. As we do capital projects, we carry those projects with what's called bond anticipation notes, where we're just paying interest. But it gets to the point where we think it's very advisable to go out to bond, and then we have to start paying principal. We did that at the end of 2019. We got a very, very favorable rate for the debt that we incurred between 2015 and 2019. But now we have to start paying back that principal. So that is an additional $853,000 that we had to budget in there. So our debt service is just about $4 million. And that was one of the other big challenges. The other challenges that we're always looking at are tax appeals. With the economy being good for the last several years, we've seen a reduction in the tax appeals, which is good. I do have a little bit of a concern now that if the economy does take a turn and goes on the downward side, we may see tax appeals coming back up. If not this year, because the date was extended to May 1st to file, but certainly going to 2021 and 2022. But again, the township has been very prudent in addressing tax appeals. For those that I know the township committee knows, but for the public, on tax appeals, if we take in 25% of taxpayer dollars. However, on a tax appeal, we have to pay out the whole dollar. So we look at them, we work with our attorneys on that, and we try and structure deals that are very favorable to us. But again, being very prudent, we put a reserve together for those tax appeals so that when they do come in, we have to make those tax appeal payments, that it's not having a negative influence on the tax rate or what we can do in budgeting. So that's been in place for many years and has worked very well. Well said, Mark. Some of the key savings that we have this year that are important is back in 2014, we joined the joint municipal court with Madison, the two Chathams and Harding, and that has been a grand slam, not even a home run, but a grand slam of what we've done and the amount of money that we have saved. And we're saving, approximately $200,000 a year on a very well-run joint municipal court that has become the envy and the example for many other municipalities throughout the state of New Jersey, and is often commented on by the state as the way that things should be done. So it's a great joint service that we have, and we'll continue doing that. As I mentioned previously, we have about $1 million contribution for our employees towards their health care. Also, when we went to the rebell, we had to borrow from ourselves and make payments of $160,000 for over 5 years for a total of $800,000. We made that last payment in 2019, so we no longer have any special assessments that we have to raise in the budget. The other thing that is also been very beneficial over the years is the increase in rateables. And great credit to our tax assessor, Kathy Villarengo, and our construction code official, Albert Master Batista, that work hand in hand in making sure that when the COs are issued, that we're getting those new rateables onto the books and that they become tax revenue for us. And following 2019, we were able to add in $86 million in rateables, which accounts to an additional $361,000 in revenue. So these are our anticipated revenues for 2020. Commenting a little bit on Mr. Gannon's comments before about revenue projections and everything else. I can strongly concur with him, and Ms. DeAngelis and myself have looked at what we budget in the revenues, and we have always been budgeting extremely conservative on our budget revenues, especially on that line that says miscellaneous revenue of $5.769 million. Even with a significant downturn, with what we budget, I am confident that we'll be able to hit that number without having to dip into our reserves for that. On the fund balance, at the end of the year, we look as to how much money we have on hand. We have a fund balance policy of 15% of our appropriations minus the reserve for uncollected taxes. It's about 2 months worth of payments that we would have to make. And we took that money that we had in excess at the end of the year, and we rolled that right back into this year's budget to help us come up with what you will see as a flat budget for this year without any increase. But we, as I said, we took that money at the end of the year. We kept that fund balance policy, and we're able to put that money back into this year's budget, so taxes would not have to be raised. We also have to budget for delinquent taxes. I anticipate that it may be more than that because of what we're seeing here, and if people are unable to pay their property taxes, and we will closely look at that as we go through. I'm comfortable, very comfortable with the May 1st tax payment, but as the year goes on, especially August and everything else, as this continues, hopefully we rebound back very quickly, but we'll continue to look at that very closely. Our local tax, which is the property tax was raised, will be $22.66 million. which will be at the same tax rate as 2019. The library tax that's basically an assessment. We have to raise that. That comes out of your tax bill as a separate item, and then that money goes to the library. So that's net neutral for the budget, where we raise that, but we also then send that to the Morristown Township Joint Library. So this year's budget is coming in at $38.296 million. So how am I going to spend that $38.296 million? And I won't spend it all, I promise you, but we're ready to go. The biggest one there is our salary and wages. That's almost $14.3 million for our employees. Our operating expenses are $9.673 million, and then the statutory expenses, and that's our healthcare costs, our pension costs, Social Security, those kinds of things, is a little over $4 million. There's payment for the library, and then our capital improvements and our debt service of the $4 million. Just going back to the salaries, that's an increase of about $412,000 over last year, and the operating expenses is an increase of about $377,000 over last year. But we've also seen some benefits, especially on our statutory expenses, where we've seen a decline because we saw pension come in fairly good for the police and fire pension this year. That helped offset any increases. But as Mr. Gannon said, very concerned for 2021 in pension, our assessment for the pension. I just wanted to go over, this is how we split up the property tax. As you see, the majority is the school district. They get 60%. The township share is 23%. The county gets 5%, and the library 2%. So although we collect all the money, we only spend less than 25% of your tax dollars for municipal services. Some of the highlights there also is that we are well below the appropriations cap by almost $1.5 million. We're below the 2% tax cap by $3.6 million. And I am pleased that we were able to bring in another flat rate budget for 2020, the same as in previous years. So no increase on the municipal side of the tax bill for our residents. Some of the things that we'll be doing this year is road reconstruction. We have a number of projects that are on the books that will be moving forward this year, some that are being completed from previous years. The two biggest ones being on the road reconstruction. We received grants from the state of New Jersey. It's part of the gas tax, and it goes into the state aid. And we will be doing a reconstruction for Rayner Road that is currently underway, and following that one will be Sherman Avenue. And that will be coming up probably later on this year. And then we'll be doing another number of smaller projects, and also doing our annual road overlay project, which is basically that's the repaving of about 15 to 20 streets that we have. And we look at every street. We have a model from Rutgers that we use for pavement, and we determine which streets are in need of being repaved. We rate them, rank them, and then we have what we have in funds, then we move forward to get that done. We want to work on purchasing of equipment. We're looking at refurbishing one of our ladder trucks. It's coming to the end of its life expectancy. Ladder trucks are worth approximately $1.5 million to buy new. We're going to spend about $500,000 to refurbish the one we have, and that will give us another 10 to 12 years of life on that truck. So it's a very, very good investment. We'll continue working with all of our other departments, and the jewel of Morris Township are all our recreation facilities, and making sure that they are kept up and improved upon. One of the projects that we're working on from last year and hope to see come to fruition shortly are new tennis courts for Streeter and Ginty, but we'll continue working on that. The other things that our residents don't really see, but it's very important, are the improvements that we make to our sewer utility. They are expensive, but we run 2 sewer plants and 9 pump stations, and we need to keep them up top running condition. Our men over there do a terrific job in running them. along with our engineering department, making sure that all those improvements are done on a yearly basis, and taking care of those needs so we don't have any breakdowns. We also have the two jewels of Morris Township being our swim pools. And again, now that they're 5 years old plus, there are certain things that we need to do to make sure that they keep that gem of what they are, and providing that to our residents. And one of the other things that we look forward to doing this year is making some improvements to the Common Railroad train station building. We own that building. It's looking a little worn right now, and working with the standing committee, we're going to be going in there and replacing the tile, working on the floors, refurbishing the benches and seating areas, and kind of making it pristine for the historic building that it is, and a couple other minor improvements over at the train station. Looking at our utilities, we run 3 utilities, being the sewer utility, the parking utility, and the swim pool utility. They all run very well. Our sewer utility has a budget of about $10.4 million, and that's about $5.8 million in operating expenses. We have another $3.3 million in the capital projects that we're going to do, and then we're paying off $1.3 million in debt. I think it's also important to note that the sewer utility, we've been paying off debt since 2014. We have not incurred any new debt at all, and that debt has come down significantly. And even when we just did we're working still on the Skyline Sewer project, which is going to cost in excess of $5 million, we were able to do that without raising any debt or having to raise the sewer fees, which have remained stable since 2007. Our parking lot utility also works at a profit. As they say, you build it, they will come. So it is filled every day, and even with the lack of people currently traveling back and forth on the trains, with what we have budgeted, what we have in reserve, I have no concerns at all with the parking lot utility being in the black again this year, and we have fund balance there to do those projects I spoke about earlier, and also to offset any decrease in revenue that we may have this year. The swim pool, maintaining the swim pools is always a challenge. It's also because it's based on sewer user fees. We were also hit last year, and again this year, our salary costs have gone up significantly for the pool, and that is due to the dollar increase in 2019, again 2020, for the minimum wage. So all of our costs for our lifeguards and attendance and everything else have significantly increased. So we built that into the budget. We also have a number of improvements that we wish to make for that. And as I said, putting the down payment for the capital so that we can keep them in very, very good condition and keep up the upkeep for those pools. And when we went out and built the new pools, we went out to debt in excess of $4 million for the 2 pools. We were only given 10 years to pay that back. So we have a debt payment of just under $400,000, and we've had that for the last several years. And we do get a subsidy from the general budget to help offset the debt service for the swim pool. Want to just talk about fund balance, and fund balance is much more important now than ever. Often referred to as a rainy day fund or other things like that, but because what the township has done over the years with fund balance and making sure that we had funds in place, we are very well positioned for what is currently going on. We have a fund balance policy, as I spoke earlier, and that's roughly 15% of appropriations minus the reserve for uncollected taxes. And maintaining that rolls over from year to year. But when we have major things that come through, where we've had in the past all of the storms, whether it be Hurricane Sandy, Irene, the nor'easter, when we had the March nor'easters 2 years ago, we were able to make all of those repairs, to pick up all of that debris without having to raise the tax rate or dipping into other sources or cutting services or anything else so that we can do that. So it's very important to have that. It's also a reserve to help us to maintain that tax levy cap of 2% and any fluctuations that go up and down. Also, as we're looking at the loss of revenue, again, we budgeted very conservatively, but if we look, as Mr. Gannon said, if we're looking at where state aid is delivered, and it's not really state aid, it's tax receipt revenue, but the state gets it and gives it to us. If they hold back on it, delay it for whatever reason, if we need to, use the fund balance, again, we would bring that back before the Township Committee to help us look at that before we go out and borrow money. It's also there, as I talked previously, part of that goes into a reserve for tax appeals and making sure that those tax appeals do come in, they have no significant offset on the tax rate for our residents. So that is the importance of the fund balance, and again, the policies of the Township Committee over many, many years of what we've done and being very conservative has allowed us to continue as we have for the past 10 years without any significant property tax increases on the municipal level. And this is the property tax rate. As you'll see, Morris Township is flat. Now, some of the numbers I'm giving you are projected rates, and talking with my fellow administrators or CFOs. The county budget this year is also going to be coming in flat. Where we're seeing the big increase on the overall tax rate again this year is the school district. The school district is going up this year. They had a number of challenges at the end of last year. They're going up 2.6% this year. We also, as I spoke, we have a ratio that's based on equalized value between the town of Morristown and the Township of Morris. Again, that ratio is swinging in favor of Morristown, so we have to pick up a little bit more than we have in the past. Our increase this year, just alone for all of the taxpayers in the township for the school district, is over $2 million increase this year. So fairly significant. It's going to come out right now approximately $158 per household. That's going to be towards the schools. I also know that, with the increase in ratables and everything else, once we get the bills finalized, I'm hoping to see a reduction in that number of somewhere about 20% if we can, but I won't have those final numbers until we're able to finalize our tax rate, and that may be delayed because of the delay in, most likely the delay in the state budget, which is being, as a fiscal year, and that's being moved from July 1st to October 1st. So we'll take a look at that, but overall, Township is flat. The school district will cause an increase for our residents in their annual tax bill. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the coronavirus impact and my, talking it over with Mr. Gannon and Ms. DeAngelis and our finance committee. Certainly, yes, revenues are a risk, but my concerns are more is the regeneration of our fund balance for 2021 and 2022. I think we're going to be fine for this year, but I'm really want to be able to dig into it next year and looking at that, and I can think that the budget process for 2021 could be somewhat difficult. We may see a reduction in our tax collection rate, so that'll be less funds coming in. We will eventually recoup those funds. And the way it works, so it's not a long term that you would lose that those tax dollars. We will eventually get them. It just may be delayed anywhere between 6 and 10 months. I do also see a reduction in our general fees and our construction code fees. Again, we budgeted them very, very conservatively. So if we lost several months of those fees, it's not going to have any negative impact on our budget this year, and we should be fine going into budgeting for 2021. I also give a credit to Ms. DeAngelis for her investment strategy that she has done over the years with the township dollars. She has done a terrific job with that, and where we usually budget about 100,000, 150,000. Last year, she brought in over 600,000. So I challenge her to do it again this year. But again, we budgeted very conservatively, and we'll see how that works out. spoke a little bit about the state aid delay. It may cause us some cash flow problems that we will work out. The other one is the swim pool fees. We don't know when this is going to end, or if it's going to impact the swim pool season. Are we going to be allowed to open up our pools, which open up the first weekend in June? If we have to delay that and push that back into July or whatever, the fees that we take in the swim pools, we would end up having to refund part of the fees back to our users for that. One of the resolutions that was passed tonight, we have an early bird registration fee. We pushed that back at a minimum of 2 weeks and maybe longer, so that the people there, once we get an idea when we can open up the pools, they will be able to apply and get that early bird discount that normally would have had to make their payments for the swim pool fees by April 30th. Again, the parking lot fees, I think we're going to be fine. We're just going to probably lose a few months of revenue, more likely on the daily parking compared to the permit parking, but certainly we have the reserves for that. And again, budgeting conservatively, I'm not concerned with that. So that's our preparedness. Also is, the revenue projections. The important there is, continuing that reserve fund collected taxes that we have, and make sure that we have that fund balance rollover. So if we have any emergency appropriations, we are ready to go. The other thing that the state has allowed us to do and that we have taken advantage of is, if we don't spend all the money that we budget for snowstorms, we're allowed to put it into a storm trust fund. Originally, it was for only snowstorms. A few years ago, the state changed that to any related storm, so we can use that. So we have a hurricane, or we have something that is fairly debilitating, where we have a lot of debris removal, that stuff, we can draft down on that trust fund. The state, in the orders that came down from the governor, is allowing us to use that trust fund for any of our COVID-19 expenditures. We have some, not overly significant compared to a storm, but we have that, so we're going to be able to use that trust fund for our COVID-19 expenditures, and then we'll be making application to FEMA or whatever grants are available or whatever funding is available that's going to be coming down to be reimbursed, and that money goes back into the trust fund. So again, I'm very comfortable with the budget here. We were well prepared to do it. It was introduced prior to having to pretty much close down the state. So we were ready to go, and now we need to just put the budget into place and move the township forward. We're doing an excellent job in addressing this, meeting the needs of our residents, providing those services, and also working to protect our employees and making sure that they have a safe working environment for those that are required to be in here on a regular basis. And also looking at some employees that work from home or work in a combination of work from home coming into work. So plan we have put in place has well prepared the township, and we can address anything that's thrown at us. So with that, I will be quiet. And finally, basically our services infrastructure balanced out by our taxes, and most importantly, providing for the residents of Morris Township. So Mayor, with that, I would then open it up to Mr. Mancuso for any comments from the Finance Committee.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. The first thing you talked about was the rainy day. When we first started this in 2011, we had some very serious problems in the township. We found that our fund balance was at a low point. They had to lay off many people at the time, and we said, and conjointly with mostly came from you, that we would budget for a rainy day. Well, don't ask me how it happened, but we have 2 rainy days coming up. One has happened already, and that's the coronavirus. We have no idea what the impact of that is going to be on our town, on our revenues, and the same thing is what's going to happen to the state and where the problems come about. I would say to keep the budget flat, for the town our size, and if you look at the budgets of all the major neighboring towns, you would find that our flat budget is far and away better than most others. But I would someday like to try to do a survey to see towns of our size, of 24 to 25,000 people, and how many towns are running the services that we have and the budgets that we have, and everything is going in a very, very positive thing. So we started doing this budgeting since 2011, and every year we have put money into our surplus or our fund balance. For the past 5 years, our tax rate has either been flat or down a bit. All our services, where possible, have increased or stayed the same, and none of them will lower it. But we have no idea what the impact of this virus could be. And as we talked a lot about this situation, we never want to get ourselves back to that 2010 year where we've got layoffs, use too much of the fund balance, and don't really understand, and we don't understand, but don't know where we're going. But the second bet noir is in 2022, the 2% levy cap rate is gone. And we will then, and that's the same year, the levy cap rate is gone now. But in 2022, we're going to have to negotiate with all our unions. Now, we have had the privilege and the ability to keep the rate at 2% for most of our union negotiations. I have a feeling that's not going to happen in 2022, and that's going to be another reason for a rainy day and putting as much away as we can. We received $3,279,000 as state aid, possibly delayed a little bit. But if the state budget worsens in 2021 or 22, because of the impact of this virus, we just have no idea where that's going to leave us. We have lost since 2001 $15 million in state aid, which comes out to about $700,000 or $800,000 a year. Could you just imagine what we could have used that for and the things that would have, been taken care of in our town? We're getting hit with an increase in tipping fees. That's the amount we pay to have our garbage and our recyclables taken away and put somewhere. In the old days, we used to be able to sell our recyclables and do pretty well. We send them overseas. Those days are gone. So we're just worried about, number one, if the state budget worsens, what's going to happen with this pandemic or this virus that we're living through. And we never want to get back to where we were. And we want to do everything we possibly can to make this town run as well and as fantastically taken care of with our police and fire and EMTs and stuff. And not to have to worry about making ends meet. So I just think that Tim and Fran have done a great job putting this together. And Mr. Gannon has helped from the outside, and Kathy and I, as the Finance Committee, have done what we could to try to keep the numbers as reasonable and as same as possible. So I thank you, Tim, and I thank you, I thank you, Fran and Kathy, for all you've done for this township, and I'm very, very proud of this budget. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. Mayor Wilson?
Yeah, I'm proud of it as well. And I would have to say this budget represents months of work by many different people. And the prevailing view really is that it's very sound, and it puts us in a very good position to face what we're facing right now, which is the ultimate rainy day. So I am interested to hear from Mr. Arvanites. Mr. Arvanites, you're the only committee member that I have not spoken with about your thoughts about this particular budget. So I would be interested to hear if you could explain what your thoughts are.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. As I've mentioned in previous years, and in our first year that you and I served, we were successful in getting the Township Committee to actually lower taxes by 0.5 point. And the Township didn't skip a beat, even by lowering it 0.5 point. Then we could have lowered it even more. Last year, I proposed us lowering 4 points, which would have saved a couple of $100. I think it was closer to $400 per household. We still wouldn't have skipped a beat. Instead of increasing our surpluses and our reserves and our trust funds by probably close to 2 million, if not more, we would have increased it by a little bit less than that. My discussion that I had last year as to it being a tax increase, even though we're coming in with a flat rate, is again the same thing this year. So we are voting on a very deceptive budget. And what I mean by that is not that everyone didn't put a lot of hard work in it. I did as well. All of us did. Some more than others. And Tim and his staff probably put in 10 times more than what we did. But the reason why I say it's deceptive is because our revenues are not reflected accurately. Our expenses are not reflected accurately. And if you have a budget that's flat, that means that you bring in exactly what you spent. So if we're increasing our budget, our surplus by 5% of our overall budget, then that means that we're overtaxing our residents in order to increase that surplus, which is getting close to almost 50% of our total budget. So I think we have more than enough for a rainy day. On top of it, when you have a rainy day, you're not going to use $18 million of your money in 1 year. You can't. So if we have a rainy day, we have things budgeted already, which means that some of our expenses will be less. But overall, the budget is not reflected accurately. And me as a CPA, I cannot vote for something like that. So, David had mentioned that we don't have a tax increase this year. But David, how do you create a surplus? Because this budget already has built into it a surplus. At the end of next year, just like I said last year, that our surplus will go up $1.5 to $2 million, which it did. The same thing's going to happen again this year, even with the virus going on. That's the way our budget has been created, in a time also that our residents are in need. Some of them can't buy food, and we're still overtaxing them. Give the residents some of their money back. They deserve it, especially in this time. Thank you.
Mr. Avernines, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
So I've heard you say before that you feel that our revenues and expenses are not accurately reflected. And does that connect with the difference in the philosophy that I've heard you talk about before, as far as budgeting? Can you elaborate on what I'm getting at, I guess, is that the way I've understood your kind of philosophy is that it's going year by year. So the revenue should be collected and the expenses just like with the frame is that particular year. And part of projecting conservatively, it plugs into a more long-term view of your budget and taxes. Can you comment on that? I'm not sure if I'm correctly connecting the dots on the things that I've heard you say, but I've heard you say that the revenues are not accurately reflected, and I've heard you talk about a difference in philosophy.
Right. So, David, you could probably answer this question better than myself or anybody, that over the last couple of years, looking at our budget, and historically, we've had X amount of dollars as revenue from permits. But we always show probably like 1/10 of what we collect in our budget. And the trend hasn't gone down. It's been staying the same or going up. So that's something that's not reflected accurately. The last couple of years, our interest on our investments has been substantially more than what we've collected. Part of that is because interest rates are a lot higher than what they were 3 years ago. And so that's why we were able to budget for 100,000 and we got 600,000. Again, that's not reflected accurately. We have an idea of what our return on our investments will be for 2020. And so that's not being reflected accurately. As far as some of the expenses are concerned, we have things that in our budget that we are budgeting for $500,000 and we only spend $250,000 every single year. So it's things like that it's artificially creating a surplus, and that's not what municipal budgets are supposed to do. So in my budget that I wanted to try to do for last year and that I talked to a few of you this year, I didn't go into great details this year because I knew how it was going to turn out again, because my philosophy is different than yours and the rest of the committee, which is fine. We don't all have to agree. But the budget that, even if we lowered it by 4 points, we're still going to add to our surplus. So we're helping our residents out a little bit, and we're still saving for the future. We're just not saving at as fast of a clip as what this budget is doing and what last year's budget did. And so that's why I keep saying we are overtaxing our residents, because we're creating surpluses artificially. If you have a surplus because you made a budget and somehow, some way you were extremely fiscally responsible and you saved every single penny and nickel that you could and you created a surplus, that's one thing. But when you budget to create a surplus, that's wrong.
To be clear, Mr. Arvanites, what would be your preference as far as our budget going forward for this year? As far as we're keeping it level, it's flat this year, what would be your recommendation?
If anything we lower at this point, I'd be happy with. Even if we came down 0.5 point, we're giving our residents something back. I would prefer it to be 4 points, but I'm not going to be greedy. If we can come up with something that we can lower taxes, we're giving our residents some of their money back, especially in a time that they need it. We don't need it right now. They need it. And we're sitting on, don't just look at our fund balance. We have reserves for capital. We have reserves for taxes. We have other trust funds that we have monies put away. The surpluses that we have in our sewer utility. We have an excess of $20 million saved for a rainy day. That's a lot of rainy days.
Yeah, well, we're in a pretty big one right now, I would say.
Yep, we are. But we're still fine.
Also, I think the impacts of this particular rainy day are going to be felt exceptionally hard, not just this year, but in the future. So I'd like to ask Mr. Quinn and Mr. Gannon if you have any comments in response to some of the particulars that Mr. Arvanites raised.
I'll jump in and talk first. We've worked hard to make sure that we have that 15% in reserve, so we have that rainy day. I think if you look at other municipalities in county, that's pretty standard, is having 2 months worth of reserves available for you. And being that we're coming in flat, I'm very comfortable with it. We do budget conservatively, and it was brought up with the construction code fees, and we're budgeting $750,000 towards that, and we've seen that come in anywhere from 1.1 to 1.4, depending on what we have. But my bigger concern is that if that goes down or we see a significant decrease, that we're not going to hit that $750,000 what we budgeted. So we budgeted very conservatively, and what we've done is, as we said, we did have an excess of fund balance at the end of 2019. We basically took that and we rolled that back into this year's budget. So it was not that we were putting that away, but it went back into the budget. We were also, reimbursed the township for some FEMA money that came in back into that storm recovery trust fund. Again, that came in, and then the excess of that helps with the fund balance. But, it's my philosophy is just to budget very, very conservatively. The fund balance helps us with peaks and lows that go up and go down, and that if back in like 2008 and everything else, the construction industry crashed, and at that time we weren't getting even $300,000 to $400,000 in permitting fees. But the boom of the last few years has certainly helped, but it's not going to be like that forever. What is also raised the UCC fees have been the number of projects that have come on board. Some of those with the declaratory judgment litigation, where we're building affordable housing, but to build out affordable housing, the builders are then building market rate units. So we're seeing that. We're seeing the redevelopment of the old Honeywell property and now the Colgate property. So we're seeing that we have a large project on Mount Campbell Avenue with a office building there that was in distress and had gone into foreclosure and auction and sat there for vacant for many, many years. And we worked with the owners and the developers and worked on bringing in a major corporation, which is now coming in. It's 400,000 square feet. It's a huge office building, and it takes a lot of work from our construction code officials to do all of those inspections and make sure it's safely built. But although we have huge permit fees in 1 year, that's a 1 year increase, and it's going to go back down. So with what we have here, that what we're budgeting, we're going to be very close to that number that we're budgeting this year for UCC fees. But we do look at all of the fees every year. And I wanted to go back. I did misspeak a little bit about the money that we invested. It was about $250,000 that we budgeted for investments. $260,000, and we brought in about $600,000. So it was a little bit, but again, I think we budgeted that again this year. But with the interest rates going back down, I don't think we're going to see those this year. And we'll probably be very close to those revenue numbers. So I'm very comfortable with our budgeting practices that we've done to maintain the flat, because I think if you look at any other municipality around, there is nobody that can shine our shoes with what we are.
Can I add something else?
Sure.
Madam Mayor? So some of the other things that I didn't mention earlier as well is that we collect close to 99.9% of the taxes in town, but yet we budget that we're going to collect, I think it's 96% and change. Right. So right off the bat there, we've already created a $1.5 million reserve just from that. So we also have that that we can throw into the whole mix. The other thing that I will say, and I have experience with this as well in my previous life serving as mayor, that if we all went down to the local finance board with this budget, and I argued that we should lower taxes, and you argued to keep it where it is, I guarantee you they would go along with my budget. And the reason why I say that is because it happened. When I served in my previous lifetime, the council actually wanted to raise taxes, and I went to the local finance board with our budget, and they forced us to use our surpluses to lower taxes. So the local finance board probably just sees these and signs off on them. But if we went down there and we argued before them, guarantee you they would say, use some of your surpluses to lower taxes. You have too much. And so that's why everyone looks at us and says, wow, look at them. Because we have too much. We don't need it all.
You went to the finance board and they told you to take the lower budget that you were calling for? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. They asked us to use $1 million from surpluses and reserves to lower taxes instead of raising them. exactly $1 million.
I never heard of such a practice of going and asking for them. Well, whatever. One thing I wanted to ask you, Mr. Arvanites, based on your experience, what amount of reserve do you think is prudent to have?
A little bit less than what we have now, because
So
what we're gonna do now is
15% now, and you think we could? What would be your recommended percent?
so if we lowered our budget by 4 points, that means that our surplus would be lowered by roughly 1.5 million, I think it is, and we would still probably add another $500,000 to the budget next year. I mean, to our fund balance. So we need to start slowing down the increase in our fund balance and our surpluses, because when is enough enough?
Mm-hmm.
We're already at, if you add in all of our surpluses,
not enough.
I'm sorry?
And when is too little not enough?
Well, that's where you have to have a balance. So if you add up all of our surpluses and everything, we cover probably 2/3 at least of our total budget. We're not a house that we save money like that. It's different how we handle our house finances. It's different when you handle a business finance, and it's different when you're handling 25,000 residents' money.
And the way I see it, Mr. Arvanites, is that the practices that we're rising here and have been for a number of years enable us to keep things pretty level year to year. Whereas it sounds to me like your approach would be more variable. In other words, times would come where you'd have to really have significant increase in taxes to make up for not having.
No, that's not true at all. All I'm saying is not to create as big of a surplus as we're creating. My budget would not be variable. So, wherever you're getting that kind of information to try to paint a picture that the plan that I have would hurt our town is absolutely wrong.
I'm not painting it that it would hurt.
I'm not saying you, but I've heard other people use that argument as well. And so I live in this town. I want to have a stable tax rate. I'm not going anywhere. I don't want any seniors to have to leave this town. That's the main reason why I got involved in politics in the first place. I mentioned this before, that my parents and other seniors couldn't afford to live in the town that they loved because the taxes kept going up and they moved out. I got involved so that nobody ever had to do that again and have to leave the town that they raised their children and that they grew up in. That's what I'm trying to do here, because I'm not going anywhere. I want to stay here. I may not serve ever again on the governing body, but this is the kind of planning that we need to have moving forward, because we are overtaxing our residents, and it's not fair. It's not a fair way to budget. It's not a fair way to treat other people's money. And that's why I say that the budget is a deceptive budget. I'm not saying that we on the committee are doing anything deceptive, but the budget is a deceptive budget. Mm-hmm. Because I admire and I respect everyone that sits on the committee. I know all the hard work that goes into it, and whether we agree or we don't agree, I respect everyone that sits up here, and I respect all of our employees as well. So this has nothing to do with that. It's just, I have a passion for this, and I've done it before, and it actually worked. And again, I don't like talking necessarily about my past life, but I did it for 14 years, and nobody skipped a beat. Mm-hmm. And the surplus kept increasing. And every single street and park and everything that we had, the infrastructure was done, and debt was coming down. It can be done, because it has been done. And that's why I talk about this, and I have passion about it. I could just, we could say, something, it's 8:30 right now. I could have just kept my mouth shut so we all could have gone home already. But I love this town. I respect all of our residents and all the hard work that they do, and also the participation that everybody has in making Morris Township be what it is. Because it's not us, it's not the staff, it's all 25,000 people that make Morris Township what it is. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm looking to do, is to make sure that everybody is taken care of when we deal with this budgeting.
Thank you. And as I've told you many times, Mr. Arvanites, I appreciate the fact that you bring differing views to the table. I think that's healthy. And I'm glad that we're having this opportunity to discuss it tonight. And I will say that based on my experience, and I've talked with all the people who have worked on the budget, and what I'm seeing is a difference in philosophy. And it's my opinion that the existing philosophy is better for our town. So we do have a difference of opinion, and we're discussing it in an open and respectful manner, and that's a good thing. So I'm wondering if anyone else on the Township Committee would like to make any comments or ask any questions.
Yes, I would, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Grayzel.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the Finance Committee, along with Tim Quinn and our CFO, Francine DeAngelis, for their hard work in putting together yet another physically sound budget. I'm pleased, as our residents should be, that we are again able to keep our tax rate flat while still investing in improving our town with upgrades such as what was just discussed by Tim Quinn, with building new sidewalks, providing new tennis courts to be installed this year, a new playground at Baker Farm on Lake Valley Road, just to name a few. And the budget also provides a very healthy fund balance, as we were just discussing, which is like money in reserve to help us weather the potentially rocky road our budget faces over the next year. I wanted to also point out that although it only came up on one slide tonight, we also collect $11 per average household to fund our open space trust fund. We continue to preserve important open space in Morris Township, as we recently did with the Valley View property on Picatinny Road, and with the aforementioned Baker Farm, where we're building a playground this year. The Township committee's put together a budget that is not only physically responsible for the present, but is also physically responsible in an economic downturn that we might be facing going forward. And just to address a couple of things that Mr. Arvanites just spoke to, yes, the surplus is increasing, but with the policy we have of 15% set aside against the operating budget for the surplus, when the budget goes up every year, as it does because of inflation, salaries, expenses go up, the surplus has to go up along with it. So yes, the surplus is going to increase, but it is at that 15% rate that we're holding it to. It's not above 15%. So just as, and again, I agree with Mayor Wilson, it's a different philosophy. You know, I like to budget my household so that we have money in the bank. You know, we keep money in the bank for a rainy day, or in case we needed to do something, an emergency comes up, we have money in the bank to do it. And I appreciate that Mr. Arvanites thinks we need less, but we have this policy of 15% that we're sticking to. It's currently at the 15% level. And I think that's the appropriate thing for all of us to do. And with regard to his point with senior citizens and allowing them to keep them in their homes too, that's very important to me. You know, I've knocked on a lot of doors over the years and spoken to a lot of seniors who are very concerned about not being able to stay in the houses that they've been in for 50 years. And we're keeping taxes flat. As a municipality, what the school district is doing is separate, but as a municipality, we're keeping flat. And we're setting ourselves up in the future to have this reserve fund to cushion ourselves for any blows that are coming down the road. So that, as you stated earlier, in the future, we might need to raise taxes if there's a big economic downturn. If we have this bigger cushion, we won't have to do that next year. So we set ourselves up to hopefully keep ourselves flat next year as well. And so we're doing the prudent thing, I think, at this time, especially in the economic situation that our country finds ourselves in. We can look at what's happening with the federal government having to print money, the deficit that the state of New Jersey is going to be in. We should be keeping our money in the bank so that we can maintain ourselves as a stable community going forward. So with that said, I am very, very pleased with the work that everybody's done to put together the budget, and I am very pleased to be able to support it tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else from the Township Committee would like to make any comments?
Mayor, I would.
Go ahead, Mr. Jorfi.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to echo the rest of the committee's thanks to our Finance Committee. I express my deepest appreciation to the hard work of Administrator Quinn and our CFO, Francine DeAngelis. I think this budget was delicately prepared with our township residents in mind. I do remember the times that Committeeman Mancuso and Administrator Quinn were talking about a decade ago, where the township was experiencing financial hardship. And what I think is prudent for us to do is avoid a situation where our town would again be forced to lay off essential workers or firefighters like we had to do back then. So I think, especially during this current pandemic, what we are doing is the right move for our residents. It provides stability, and it will better prepare us for whatever lies ahead of us in the next year and the year after, as the coronavirus continues to impact our daily lives.
Thank you. Assuming nobody else wants to say anything from the Township Committee, I will ask if there's anyone from the public who would like to ask any questions or make any comments. And if so, if you could hit the little raise hand icon on your device.
Mayor, if I may, I think you want a motion and a second before we move to public deliberation.
Okay. Can
I would be happy to move forward the budget presented before us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Grazel. A second? Can I second it? I'll
You can.
second it.
There you go.
Okay, so the motion to adopt the budget is on the table. We've had our discussion among the Township Committee members, and we're looking for questions and comments from anyone from the public who would like to share any views. Mr. Daly, do we have anyone?
Yes, we have Jeffrey Miller, one would allow to speak.
Okay, this and our questions and comments right here are limited to the budget. We will have a public commentary on other items coming up very shortly. But this particular comment is for the budget. Are you there, Mr. Miller?
Public comments.
There he goes. Mr. Miller?
Yes, I'll wait for the public comments. Sorry.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to ask any questions or make any comments on the budget?
I see a hand up. Mr. Kimbrough. Mr. Kimbrough, yes.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Just gotta wait for him to unmute.
And if you would, say your name and address for the record.
I keep asking him to mute, so it's gotta be on his side.
Mr. Kimbrough, can you unmute yours, make your comment?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Say your name and address.
Ronald Kimbrough, 250 Martin Luther King Avenue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mr. Arvanites was talking about the surplus. And what I was wondering is, how has it hurt the township when the federal government did not allow us to use our they didn't help when it came to claiming property tax on our federal tax returns. Has this hurt or changed our budget any?
Are you talking about the SALT deduction? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we in the past, when we did our federal taxes, we could deduct the money that we gave to the township. Now we can't.
Well, you can deduct up to $10,000 of it, and then beyond that, you cannot deduct.
But has that changed how we budget now?
I don't believe. Mr. Quinn, do you want to answer that?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Kimbrough, that has no impact on the municipal budget. What you pay into taxes and are able to deduct your federal income tax.
Yeah, that was my only concern. I wonder if that had any impact on us.
No, the only, it does not, other than your township portion will not increase for your 2020 tax return filed next year.
It has impacts on some individual taxpayers, but it does not have impacts on the municipality.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Mr. Daly?
No.
So, okay, in that case, we will close the public portion and go to a vote.
Mayor, before you go to a vote, there's a statement that I must read for the resolution.
Okay,
And then
please
we'll-
do.
And then after I complete the statement, then I will ask Mrs. Amelia for a roll call.
Okay,
The statement is, be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Morris, County of Morris, that the budget herein before set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated of the sums therein set forth as appropriations, the authorization of the amount of $22,660,067 for municipal purposes and $107,895.61 for open space, recreation, farmland, and historic preservation trust fund levy, and $1,877,161 for the minimum library tax. With that stated, I would then ask Mrs. Amelia for a roll call on the 2020 budget.
Thank you. Mr. Arvanites?
No.
Mr. Jarfi?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Brazel?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
yes. So our budget is adopted.
Mayor, I apologize, I have one more statement I must read.
Okay,
Tax resolution has been approved by the Township Committee of the Township of Morris, County of Morris on April 15th, 2020. Now I'm done. Thank you.
okay. Thank you. A big accomplishment. All right, next we have our resolutions and yes?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take it from here. So we're going to vote the resolutions in, I believe, 2 blocks, since since Committeeman Jarfi is going to need to recuse himself from those involving the fire department. So we are going to remove from this list of resolutions the following: 7620, 7720, 7820, 8220, and 8720. So we're looking for a motion on the balance of the resolutions as listed on the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Brazel?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
And now to the balance of the resolutions, once again being 7620, 7720, 7820, 8220, 8720, for which Committeeman Jarfi will recuse.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Mr. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi, as indicated?
Abstain?
Thank you. Mr. Mancuso? Yes. Mr. Brazel?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next, we have general business correspondence, which I believe is just a voice vote. So all in favor? Yeah, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have our comments by the Township Committee members, and that will be followed by public comment and inquiry. So beginning, I guess we'll go alphabetically here. Mr. Arvanites, would you like to begin, please? Do you have any further comments?
I don't have anything else to add right now, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Brazel, I guess, would be next, alphabetically.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Let's see. I first wanted to let the public know how hard our Mayor, Kathy Wilson, has been working on behalf of the residents. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, keeping our municipality running on an everyday basis that the mayor has to get involved in. When you layer on top of that the coronavirus issues and the task force that she sits on, and layer on top of that the budget the Finance Standing Committee that she sits on to prepare the budget that we heard tonight, you can all see how hard our mayor is working on behalf of our residents. So I first wanted to say thank you, Mayor, for all the hard work you're putting on behalf of the residents. Similarly, I would like to acknowledge the hard work of our administrator, Tim Quinn. We heard tonight how much he put into the budget, but again, Tim is on top of things on a daily basis. In these tough times with coronavirus, he's keeping our township moving along seamlessly, and he's done a fantastic job. So thank you, Mr. Quinn, for that. As for committee reports, which we are going to be doing as well, I'm going to start with something that a couple of residents have asked me about, and that is about our police force, which continues to function at a very high level, protecting our community. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Quinn, but I believe that right now we only have 2 officers who are required to stay at home because they were exposed to someone with COVID-19, and one of them is due back on duty next week. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Very good. So I just wanted to assure our residents that our police force is healthy and that it is out there protecting our community. Engineering-wise, Washington Valley Road, for those of us who live on the west side of town, is being completed right now. It's a 2-mile stretch that's being done at a cost of about $650,000. Next up, we have Rayner Road, which is going to be a total reconstruction project, and that's going to be followed by Sherman Avenue reconstruction. While Washington Valley Road was only repaving only, the project work on Rayner Road and Sherman Avenue is going to include curbage and draining as well. And Sherman Avenue, I believe, is also going to have a sidewalk. With regard to shared services, last year the Township Committee established a new standing committee called Shared Services. And this committee includes the shared municipal court that was tasked with, and it was also tasked with looking at additional shared services. As Mr. Quinn mentioned tonight, the shared service of the joint municipal court has been a great savings to the township with $200,000. The court is shut right now per the governor's orders, but it is a highly functioning organization. And the shared services committee is looking at other opportunities to save our municipality money, and we're working on a couple of things that we'll share with the public shortly. As for a couple personal remarks, I think we all want to thank our healthcare workers who are on the front lines battling coronavirus, but right behind them are the local first responders that include the police department, fire department, Office of Emergency Management, and the Minutemen Ambulance Service. So my thanks goes out to all of these people who are on the front line keeping our safety net secure in Morris Township. Lastly, we're all getting a little bit of cabin fever staying home. I know I'm getting it, and many people are. And it's unfortunate that the governor had to close the county parks, which a lot of us used. But we all have our streets and our sidewalks outside our homes. Hopefully some of us have sidewalks they can access to get out there and stay healthy. I really recommend people going out for a walk and getting out of the house, going for a walk on our streets, take your bicycle out, go for a bicycle ride. And one last comment with regard to cabin fever is I read an article on the Morristown Online News Service today that quoted a professor from Drew University who suggested that instead of just sending texts to your friends, actually pick up the phone and call people. Because a lot of us don't have the opportunity to speak to as many people as we would in our normal lives. So picking up the phone in these times, although we're not used to it, picking up the phone and talking to a friend will actually, you'll find that it will provide you great relief. So I recommend that you do that. I'll close again by thanking Mayor Wilson for her leadership during this tough time of coronavirus, during this budget period. Thank you, Mayor Wilson. You are doing a fantastic job for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Jorfy?
Thank you, Mayor Wilson, and thank you for your leadership during this ongoing pandemic that we're experiencing. The amount of work you're putting in and day out is definitely bearing fruit for the residents of our town. To avoid the imminent connectivity issues for my video feed, I will submit my full remarks for the record, but just wanted to have some brief remarks for our live Zoom call for the residents who are dialed in. Like Committeeman Grisell, I want to extend my thanks and best wishes to our health service providers, including those of Morristown Memorial, our police, fire, EMTs, OEM, and all those providing essential services such as working at our grocery stores, our pharmacies, our restaurants. They are carrying the weight of our country on their shoulders right now, and their sacrifices should not go unrecognized. Secondly, I'd like to send my heartfelt condolences to the families of those who have lost loved ones during these tragic times. My prayers are with those in mourning and those who are currently battling illness while isolated from their families. I'd also like to note that both Kelly and I send our condolences to our Township Attorney, Scott Carlson, and the Carlson family on their recent loss. Our nation has faced tough challenges like this before, and I know that in spite of our current reality, that our resolve as a community, as a state, and as a country will make us stronger as a people because of it. And I think we should also pass the message along to our residents that if you, someone you know, or a loved one is in need of any help, any resources that they may need, reach out to your town, reach out to Morris Township. We will connect you with those who can provide resources, whether it's from getting groceries or picking up prescriptions from a pharmacy. Please reach out to us and know that you and your family are not alone in this. I'd like to move on to my standing committee reports, but tonight I'll just stick with the Communications and IT Committee, which I chair with Mayor Wilson. First, I want to extend my thanks and best wishes. Extend my thanks to Administrator Quinn and Virginia Murphy and Mr. Quinn's staff for providing us up-to-date information pertaining to the COVID pandemic. Mayor Wilson and I, along with several other department heads, have been having frequent conference calls to get updates from our boots on the ground. It has been our highest priority to provide our residents with transparency during these tough times. And we have worked since March 8th to provide over nearly 30 COVID-specific alerts and messages to our residents that included helpful information, updated guidance, and perspective from your governing body. If you are not signed up for our municipal messenger, I encourage you to do so through our website to get the latest sent automatically to your inbox. Also, please just visit our homepage. We have our COVID website up and running right from the homepage where you can find out all of the resources you need. You can have links to the state, and you can see Morris Township's latest numbers in terms of infections. Lastly, I'd just like to thank our IT department, Mark Daly and Greg Sims, for working tirelessly to get us up and running virtually, not only the Township Committee, but also the Planning Board, and also numerous staff in Town Hall who have had to start working from home on a week's notice. So thank you for your hard work. And thank you for the rest of our Township employees who continue to allow our town to operate and provide essential services that our residents depend on. With that, I will yield back to the mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mancuso?
Thank you, ma'am. Two things on the resolutions that I'd like to just point out. One of them is congratulations to our new fire chief, Michael Nunn. I'm sure at the appropriate time, we'll have a good celebration for him. And just talking about the improvements to the parking lot, we're going to be restriping. We're taking care of the drainage and doing improvement to the station itself and demolition to buildings that are of no use to us anymore. I'd like to offer again my condolences to Scott Carlson on his loss. Yeah. And my wishes to Mr. Rodriguez, the water minority. You're very articulate in your thought process, and I appreciate all you have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to ditto everything that everyone else has said. There's so many people here to thank and who have gone so above and beyond to help all of us get through this. It's been quite challenging, and it continues to be, but I think we're doing a really good job of addressing all the various things that are coming our way. I did also want to highlight and congratulate the new hires for our fire department, Dan Lovenberg, Melissa Alderton, and Larry Keller. And we will be putting in a new chief effective May 1st. Mike Nunn will be our new chief, and we will be having ceremonies in May. Hopefully this is another situation where we want to make sure that people can attend in person. And if we can't have in-person attendance in May, we will likely put it off until we can. And we will also be congratulating Jesse Carr and thanking him for his many years of service as he retires from the fire department. I also just wanted to say we've been working really hard on communications for the township. And as Mr. Jorphy said, our communication committee, we've been working very hard with Mr. Quinn and Virginia Murphy. And I'm really proud of the communications that have gone out to our community in this extraordinary time. And I encourage you to go on our website. It's updated. Virginia updates it daily. And you can find lots of information to help you get through this. And we continue to update it every day. And we're committed to providing excellent communication for our residents. I also just wanted to say that for myself, an important goal for me personally is modeling excellence in how we work with land use issues. And the whole COVID situation adds additional challenges to that. But I want the public to know that we're very committed to working with land use issues in ways that ensure that residents have the information that you need in a timely manner, easily accessed, so that you can understand what's going on and participate. I think there's also an important education component in working with land use issues, particularly, for example, redevelopment. It's a separate category of land use. It's kind of complicated, and it helps everyone. The more people really are educated and understand what's going on, anticipate that we may hold some little mini sessions to help people understand the redevelopment process that's happening now at the Abbey. I also would like to say this: the two standing committees that I work with extensively, environment and transportation, those committees are on hold until further notice. As time goes by here, we probably will be looking at ways to bring together subgroups of those committees to do various project work. But for the month of May, those committees, the Environmental Commission and our new Transportation Advisory Commission, will not be meeting in person in the month of May. And I just want to say how really touched I am by the spirit of community I see here in Morris Township. There's so many examples of people reaching out and helping each other and encouraging each other and volunteer to help people in any way they need. And it just says so much about who we are as a community, and I'm very touched by it, and I really appreciate it. And we are in it together, and we will get through it together. And I know from my own experience of going through difficult times in the past, you do emerge stronger on the other side. That's true. But in the meantime, we're working together to get through this, and I'm very happy with what I'm seeing as far as people helping each other out. So with that, I believe we'll turn it over to the public for public comment.
Okay, we've got one hand. Well, and then we got two. But Jeffrey Miller, I was holding from earlier. Someone unmute Jeff.
Jeff Miller. Jeff, if you could say your name and your address.
Sure. My name's Jeff Miller, 108 Mill Road. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
I can't see you though. But
Okay.
so that's part of the we hear the resident, right, Mr. Daly?
Yes, attendees are audio only.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
All right. Thank you. So I just want to comment. I think some of you know my issue because hopefully you've been reading my emails about the Mill Road bridge work. And I don't want to repeat myself, but maybe some of you haven't heard, and I want to make sure you know all the issues that are involved. And I think the township has been doing a great job handling the COVID-19 emergency. doing everything possible to protect the lives of our citizens, except for us over here at the end of Mill Road. So it's very frustrating, very disappointed. I don't feel safe in my own house, and that's sad. This is life and death issue. I have asthma. It's been under control my entire life. It's never been life-threatening. I use an inhaler as needed daily. But everything has changed with this COVID-19. It is not fair to us over here how you are dealing with this issue or not dealing with the issue. It's as simple as that. So I know I have probably 5 minutes and I want to move on. We already know that the county controls this project. And we learned early on that they don't really care about our health and well-being of us or our property and your property because it's involved with this project. We had dealt with 400 yards of contaminated soil that was removed from around the bridge. It was supposed to be put over in Kiwanis Park. It was put in front of our houses. It was supposed to be removed in a week. After 5 weeks, it was still there. Every day, every week, we asked the county engineer to, at a minimum, cover it so it wouldn't blow onto our property, onto our houses, onto our cars, and we didn't have to breathe this contaminated soil. It also was leaching into the waterway, your waterway, the downstream waterway that's stocked every spring with fish that people get licensed to fish and possibly eat. Okay? The county couldn't buy $200 worth of tarps to cover the soil until we had to call New Jersey DEP, and within a week, the county covered it. So what does that mean? The county doesn't care about what's going on before COVID-19. Now that COVID-19, it's not just possible contamination detriment to our health, but we know because you have closed the whole town down, everything is stopped except for this project. Now, who has jurisdiction on this project? Is it the state? Is it the county? Is it the township? So here's my point. You guys closed your parks before the state did. Okay, so you took a proactive measure knowing that the parks were not a good place for our citizens to congregate. Even if they were living in the same house together, they couldn't go to the parks and still can't go to the park. That's 200 yards from our property. But yet, on top of our property every day, we have dozens of people coming from outside the town, from other counties in the state, which is exactly the opposite of the implementation of the lockdown. They bring in disease to our section of the town, and it affects the entire neighborhood. So it doesn't make any sense. Next, who has the jurisdiction? We asked the mayor. She said they don't have the jurisdiction to halt the work. It's a county project. Okay? We asked, the deputy mayor in his April 2020 email blast said a few people ruined it for the rest of us with the state parks, and that's why they were closed. You just told us we should go out in front of our house every day for our health and access our sidewalks and walk around. Well, we can't do that. We can't even do it 3 hours after these guys leave because there's a porta potty out there containing a dozen guys using it every day, feces and urine that possibly contain, if you listen to the scientists, coronavirus. Now, we all know now that it's asymptomatic They could feel great every day and still be carriers of the virus. Okay? But that's not an issue. We also know last year we were told we couldn't even have standing water on our property because that's a transmission of the West Nile virus transmitted by mosquitoes. So mosquitoes and bugs going into this porta potty and flying out into the neighborhood not only affects us, but affects the whole town. There's not enough science yet, and there's not enough things known about this virus. Every day we learn more. Today, the New York Times reported that this virus is so small, okay, that not only droplets, but it could be those little particles could be airborne farther, travel farther, and last longer in the air. So 6 feet is no longer good. 8 feet is no longer good. Every day we're learning new things about this. So are you going to wait for the state to implement another executive order to close all construction? Because last week they closed non-essential construction. So that means that non-essential construction workers who wear masks and proper sanitation and gloves and do all the things that they're supposed to do still can't work outside their house. But these guys who are supposedly essential can work outside our house. So does the virus just attack non-essential construction workers? I don't think so. So again, going back to who has jurisdiction. Today I contacted and I don't know if you guys got a chance to read the email, contacted the county's communication director, Larry Raganese. He said the local officials have to police this site if the construction workers are now not following the executive order and breaking the law. Okay? Now it's a law. Once that executive order was signed for construction workers who are essential to continue, they did have to follow items in that executive order that are now law in order to work. If they don't follow it, then you have to shut the site down. So who has jurisdiction to do this? According to Morris County Communication Director, it's the local officials who have to police this site. Now, the county's not policing it. The county hired inspector is not policing it. The county engineer, who he quoted, stopped by the site today and he saw everybody was wearing masks. Well, if that was the only thing that was in the executive order was to wear masks, that would be ridiculous, because the executive order not only states exactly what he wants that is required by these construction workers on any essential construction site to follow now, but it also refers to following what the CDC has implemented, what New Jersey Department of Health has implemented, and what OSHA has implemented. Okay? So you have to go through all those things. It's not just masks. Now, I gave them 2 days, okay, since this was implemented Friday night at 8 o'clock. Monday, they didn't work because of the rain. They worked yesterday. The inspector didn't have a mask, okay? Now, workers didn't have masks on. They had them on sometimes. They didn't have them on other times. They need to have them on all the time. If they take them off for an hour, that transmits the disease. It breaks the lockdown. It breaks the law.
I know.
Okay. Now let me just finish. If
you could.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. So here we are today. They're breaking the law. The county tells me to call the police. So tomorrow morning, that's what I'm going to do. If you don't believe me, once again, last week I had to take videos of urinating because we didn't want that anymore. That's been going on since the beginning. but we felt the contaminated soil was a bigger issue to deal with. But once COVID came up and it was discovered that it could be transmitted in feces and urine, and it's on our property and on Mill Road, and once they leave, it's still here. They're here 45 hours a week. They get to go home to their families and their safe houses. We're here 168 hours a week and have to deal with them even after they leave. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Listen, I gotta say, we've been in touch. We'll continue to be in touch. You have, I know, I
Now,
understand.
tomorrow I'm going to call the police. The police have to issue summonses and shut the job down. If they can't enforce, or you can't enforce, it's your responsibility now, according to the county, to enforce the job for the 9 hours, whatever it is per day that they're here 5 days a week, on all the issues that are in the executive order. If you can't do that, which it's impossible to do, you have to shut it down. And that's where we stand.
Okay. I'd like to clarify one point with Mr. Quinn. On the enforcement issue, that is my understanding, that is enforcement at the site level. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is, and for summonses to be issued and everything else, as per the executive order and the order coming down from the Attorney General.
I can't hear you. Could you speak up a little?
Is that better?
A little bit.
Yes, if they have, the police will respond up there if there is a violation. It's not shutting the job down, it's dealing with to make sure that everybody is complying with the executive order for that. So,
Who is responsible for making sure they wear masks?
well, basically, it's the construction company themselves and working with the county inspector, and that every complaint that or concern that we've received from Mr. Miller, we've addressed with the county officials to make sure that they are doing what they need to, as we dealt with the issue last year when a construction worker did not use the outhouse, but used down the bottom of the hole and decided that's where he was going to urinate. That's been addressed. Additional porta potties have been brought in on that. The other issues have come up. They said everybody now has masks on and everything else, but as you know, we don't have a police force that can be there every minute that they are working. So a lot of it, they have a county inspector on site, and we're working with the county every day. Our engineer went up and did an inspection today, and will continue to do that. But going back to summonses being issued and everything else, the police department does not have the authority to just go out and issue those summonses. They have a violation on any of the things that deal with the executive order, such as gatherings or that kind of thing. They have to get authorization from the Morris County Prosecutor's Office in order to issue a summons. So it's not just as easy as going up and issuing a summons.
So if workers are observed not wearing masks, who do you report it to? The county or to our police?
They'll come to us, and we will, through our engineering department and myself, the concerns that we've had, we've immediately addressed them with the appropriate officials with the county of Morris.
Okay, and if urination is observed, similarly, is that reported to our police?
Yes, ma'am, it is, but it's a local ordinance. So the police officer would actually have to make the observations in order to issue the summons. But I believe that issue has been addressed strongly by both the township doing the investigation and the county engineer and the county inspectors, and then working with the owner of the company and having him work with his employees about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable because of the close proximity of the two residents to the job site. But that matter, as far as I know, has been addressed, and there hasn't been any future issues other than the two that were reported. And then, as I said, the extra porta-john was placed on the site.
If there is observations, Mr. Miller, of guys not using the porta potties, I would like to know about it.
Okay, but
all right.
Why do we have to police the site? Because they're not following the masks, and the site inspector, who Mr. Quinn referenced, is not following wearing his mask. So he's also one of the people I observed urinating. So this is the county inspector who they've hired on the site to be a watchdog. It's obvious he doesn't care, okay? And why do we have to police the site?
Okay, well, I understand your complaint,
I
and
want to finish one last thing. So last week we asked Mr. Raganese, he said, I know you said you don't have jurisdiction, but he said that, and he referenced this in his email, he said that Jim Slate is asking that the bridge work to continue as planned. And what I'd like to know tonight, and I don't know if anybody wants to answer it, but that's Jim Slate's policy, okay? Maybe it's changed since the executive order. Maybe it's changed since the seriousness of the COVID, but he's asking it to continue. So he could just as easy ask it to stop. Or what is the opinion of our committee? Okay, I know maybe you don't have jurisdiction, but you do have an opinion. What is your opinion? If you could get the state or to stop it, is that your opinion? Do you see the
I understand your point of view, Mr. Miller.
I'd like to hear if any of the committee members would like to comment on it, just to know what their view is. Even if they don't have jurisdiction over stopping it, I think it is just an opinion that I would like to hear anybody who would like to express. Thank you.
Is there anybody on the committee who would like to express an opinion on that? Okay.
Mayor, I'll make a comment that, look, if our job is to protect our residents, so to the extent that we can help, if others are not following the rules, I support that we do whatever we have to do to protect our residents.
Right. There are certain things we can do and certain things we can't do. And it's my opinion is that we should push hard on the things that we can do to make the improvements. But we do not have the authority, as I understand the law, we do not have the authority to halt the work. That it is a county project. And I might suggest to you, or if you want to push, go push with the freeholders, because that's where the power to possibly stop the project resides. It does not reside here. And we can do our best to help with the things that are reasonable, as you and I have discussed many times. But halting the work is not within our authority to do so.
Well, maybe like you said, you see, I contacted the assemblyman, I contacted Senator Bucco. You have their ear more than I do. So
yes.
Somebody on the committee agrees.
What I want them to do is follow the laws. I want them to stop urinating in public. I want them to use masks. I want them to practice social distancing. I want them to not block your driveway. These are the things that we have the power to control and to push. And believe me, we are pushing for those things.
If you read through the executive order, there's a lot more things other than masks and urinating. They're supposed to have somebody on site in the morning to see if anybody who is coming from out of county, okay, has how they feel for that day. Do they need are they sick?
Okay.
Do they have a temperature? Was anybody in their house have a temperature? Was anybody sick? Over the weekend, did they travel out of state? Have anybody in their house travel? These are all things now in the executive order that are supposed to be followed. Nobody's doing that.
Mr. Miller, can we take them offline from this? We've taken up a great deal of time here, and your point is clear. Everyone gets it, and the details. Everyone gets that too. So if we could, I'm happy to continue working with you on this, but we do need to move on.
Mayor, can I just ask that the when appropriate, the Standing Committee of Jurisdiction just provide updates to the Township Committee as this progresses? I think the whole committee would agree. You know, we are concerned about what Mr. Miller is reporting, and we of course want the safety of our residents to be held in high regard by not only the county but also the contractors that are working on that bridge. So I just request that we just be kept informed as the situation progresses.
Okay, and that would be the jurisdiction of the engineering committee?
I'll take care of that, Mayor.
I can't hear Mr. Quinn very well. What did you say?
Engineering.
Engineering. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Miller. We will keep in touch and do our best to work with you on this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Mr. Daly, who wants to speak?
Stephen Shaw has been waiting. He's got his hand up. I don't know if he's still there, but I'll click on him and see if he's available.
I'm here. This is freeholder Steve Shaw. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I did consider lowering my hand, I must admit. Hi, how are you all doing? Hope you guys are doing well.
We're doing okay.
I just,
thank you for joining us.
You know, the county is so large with 39 municipalities. It's only on a reorg day that we get to go around to some different reorg meetings. But I realize with everybody doing these virtual meetings, I'm able to drop in around the county on a lot of different local municipal meetings, and it's been quite interesting and informative. And you know, I really just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of you. I was 12 years on my town council and 3 years as mayor, so it's the local government where the rubber meets the road. And you know, really just echo the remarks that a lot of you made about you know, Mayor Wilson and Administrator Quinn and the work they're all doing in interfacing with the county. I just want to thank you for that, and let you know that you know, county government is here to help and working remotely just like you are. These meetings aren't easy. I understand that. My wife's actually a planning and zoning board administrator and fretting her first planning board meeting. And also congratulations on getting your budget done. Since I did hear all the comments from Jeffrey Miller, it's all news to me. I did visit the site personally when the project was first started. I took some notes, and you know, I will follow up with the county engineering department first thing in the morning. And I think, Mayor, you have my cell phone number.
Yes, I do.
So you can always reach out to me. I am the liaison to DPW, so it's very, very apropos that I just happen to be on this dropping in.
It's a silver lining.
Yes, I guess. So so anyway, that's all I just wanted to say, and you know, our thoughts and prayers are with all the residents of Morris County, but your residents, since I'm talking to you folks, and I could try to answer any questions if you had. I know it's not usually a back and forth, but, and I might not have the answers. But
I'm really glad that you just happened to join us tonight, and I will be in touch with you. I think this is a situation that it would be good for you to know more about.
Yep. Yeah. Call me. I'm not as busy as I usually am, so you know, you have my cell. You can call me anytime tomorrow if you'd like.
Okay, will do.
All right, and once
Thank
again,
you.
just thanks to all of you, what you're doing, keeping local government running. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and I appreciate what the county's been doing as well. It's one of the silver linings of all that's going on. There's a lot of collaboration across towns, across levels of government, that is just really positive and productive. So thank you for joining us.
Okay, you all have a good evening.
You too. Is there anyone else, Mr. Daly?
No.
Okay. With that, I believe we are at consideration of monthly reports, which is all in favor?
I'll move those, Mayor. I'll move those.
Okay. Do I need a second on that?
You want a second? Yes.
All in favor?
Nope. Second.
We got a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, finally, claims for payment. Bills and vouchers, $10,947,749.84.
I move that we pay the bills, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Arvanites.
Yes.
Mr. Jarfi.
Yes.
Kuso. Yes. Mr. Brazel.
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. And with that, if I had my gavel, I'd hit it, and we will adjourn until our next meeting on May 20th, which will likely be remote. Thank you, everybody, and stay safe.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you.